The hot seat conversation in college football is out of control. The number of coaches let go is unprecedented. Through 5 weeks, we've got 5 Power 5 coaches looking for jobs. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Best discussion, debate, and analysis of the game we all love each and every day with you. Please like the video, share the videos out on social media. Consider this, not everyone knows that we're here talking college football every day, and you know some of those people on social media, so let them know that we are here to talk college football with all of you. Please subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. Hit that bell for the notifications. That's key because that way you know when we're going live. Let's run down the coaches that could be next. In the number 1 position, we go to Auburn. He was number 1 when the season started, and guess what? 5 coaches have been fired, and none of them by the name of Bryan Harsin. Considering everything that this man had to go through during the season, during the offseason, in terms of the investigation that by all accounts he did not deserve, did not in any way bring that down upon himself, I feel bad for him from that standpoint. He finished 6-7 last year. People will forget that he lost his quarterback, Bo Nix, in the midst of a 6-2 start. They lost a 28-3 lead at Mississippi State, but all of that's forgotten because basically the final conclusion is 6-7. And then he gets into the offseason, loses both his offensive and defensive coordinators. The look of losing Derek Mason, a well-respected coach, to Oklahoma State with a pay cut, not a good look. The investigation, not a good look, but not his fault by all indications. Then he goes into this season. They barely beat San Jose State by 1 score. That can't happen at Auburn. Auburn should be contending for SEC championships. Gus Malzahn did it enough to keep his job for about 8 or 9 years. But the rest of the time he was posting 7-5 and 8-5 seasons that were not good enough. Now we got Bryan Harsin sitting at 6-7. Now he's got the most difficult stretch of his season in front of him. San Jose State, we mentioned the 1-score win. They looked awful against Penn State. They played well against LSU, but they blew the game. And in what may turn out to be Bryan Harsin's version of Scott Frost calling an onside kick, Bryan Harsin called that ill-fated, allowed that ill-fated halfback option play down near the goal line in which Auburn could have taken the lead and possibly won the game against LSU, but they lose the ball game and blow a 17-0 lead. Bryan Harsin is at number 1 on our list. We go to the number 2 position and Louisville. They're recruiting well thanks to NIL. I don't know how much of that thanks goes to Scott Satterfield. It looked bright. It looked hopeful at one point. He took over for Bobby Petrino, a team that lost 8 consecutive games in the ACC at 2-10. And he turned it around, seemingly 8-5. Bowl win his first year. And then much was expected from there, and they have been pretty lousy, mediocre since then. A 6-7 season, a 3-7 season during COVID, and a bowl loss last season to finish under 500. They go into this season, they lose to Syracuse by 3 scores. They lost to Boston College. Boston College looked like the worst team in the ACC entering last weekend. Louisville lost to them. So nothing is going right for Scott Satterfield right now outside of recruiting. The recruiting looks good. How are the Cardinals going to finish with one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC and continuing to lose football games? At number 2, Scott Satterfield, Louisville. In the 3 position, we go to the Big 12 and Neil Brown of West Virginia. Well-respected coach when he took the job from Dana Holgorsen. Neil Brown did some good things at Troy. He takes over at West Virginia. He's now had 3 lackluster seasons. He is a few games under 500 at West Virginia at 19-21. Best season was the 2020 COVID year at 6-4, won a bowl game. But other than that, they are not playing good football. They were just roasted in Austin against Texas. They lost to Kansas, which at the time looked like a deplorable loss. May turn out to be a more respectful loss, losing in double overtime to Kansas than it looked 3 weeks ago, but still not winning games. And the recruiting has been decent. You see the numbers for 2023 and 2022. Neil Brown, though, at a school that gets underestimated. Look back upon West Virginia history, and I'm talking recent history. This school is used to winning 8, 9, 10 football games in a season, and they're just not getting it done under Neil Brown right now. All right, on to number 4, and talk about a guy that's respected, probably the most respected football coach on this list, but you only have so much equity at a particular place, and we don't consider Stanford to be cutthroat, like going to fire football coaches at the first drop, but David Shaw is not getting it done with the Cardinal right now. He didn't build the football program, so let's not give him too much credit for winning at Stanford. He took it over from Jim Harbaugh, who lifted and built the program to what it is today, or what it was 5 years ago. David Shaw won big early in his tenure. He's basically had 3 phases to his tenure at Stanford. Win big early, Rose Bowls, Pac-12 championships, top 5 finishes in the country. Then they leveled off after Christian McCaffrey, 8-4 type finishes. And now over the past few seasons, David Shaw at 12-22 over the past 3+ seasons at Stanford. Not good. They get blown out every week. They look awful. But the recruiting, considering at Stanford, has been pretty darn good. The 2023 class stands at number 31 in the country with 6 4-stars. And the 22 class was at number 19 in the country. And again, David Shaw is given a lot of respect for good reason. He's a smart guy, respected football coach, and they love him at Stanford, but he continues to lose. We will see about David Shaw and the priorities at Stanford. At number 5, we're almost taking David Shaw, moving to the Midwest. Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern, one of the great players in program history, led this team to a Rose Bowl appearance, which was unthinkable in 1995. Took the job 17 years ago, and what he's done at Northwestern, on some levels, unprecedented. To think about Northwestern, there have been 5 times that Pat Fitzgerald's teams have finished in the top 25 in the final AP poll. And get this, talk about total disrespect. Northwestern under Pat Fitzgerald has never been ranked in the preseason poll. Never. And 5 of those times they finished in the top 25. They, of course, most famously now, everybody knows about the roller coaster at Northwestern. Go to the Big Ten Championship, go 3-9. Go to the Big Ten Championship, go 3-9. Well, the roller coaster is not ascending. They were awful last year. They were so bad last year, and they're maybe worse this year after beating Nebraska, and that's a whole other deal. So that game should probably only count as half a win, because you pretty much run into a win facing Nebraska, unless you're Indiana. Then they go on to do their customary lose to MAC and FCS schools. Northwestern, even when they're good, I don't know what it is about Northwestern football. It must be the lack of talent not being on point in a particular week, usually early in the season, of course, against MAC and FCS opponents. Well, they've done it twice this year against what should be inferior foes. Northwestern now 4 consecutive losses. Pat Fitzgerald coming off an awful season, and now this is going to be 3 out of 4. We'll see if Pat Fitzgerald survives it there. But again, new facilities. The recruiting's been good. Unprecedented for Northwestern, number 27 in the country in the most recent class. But losing on the football field and getting embarrassed doing it in a poor Big Ten Western Division. We'll see what the Wildcats look like the rest of the year. It doesn't bode well right now for Pat Fitzgerald and Northwestern. At number 6 on our list, we go to the Pac-12, and across the bay, Justin Wilcox at Cal. Do they care about winning at Cal? Will they fire their head coach because they're lousy? Justin Wilcox is 29-30 at Cal, so that's 500. But in the Pac-12, 16-26. They're not going anywhere. They have played some decent football this year and look to have their best team that they've had in the last 3 or 4 years. I thought that this was a really good hire. Justin Wilcox was an outstanding defensive coordinator at a number of spots, most notably Tennessee and Wisconsin. But again, just not getting the job done and not bringing in players. As you can see with the recruiting rankings, at number 6, we've got Justin Wilcox at Cal. Number 7 on our list, back to the Big Ten, and Tom Allen at Indiana. If you love enthusiasm, if you love fervor and passion, you love Tom Allen. But Tom Allen just went to Nebraska and did something that no FBS team has done in 10 games, and that's lose to Nebraska. They were tied going into the fourth quarter. They give up 2 touchdowns. They lose 35-21. Tom Allen is coming off a 2-10 year, 0-9 in the Big Ten. Well, what's strange about that, of course, is that Tom Allen had lifted a marginal, to be kind, program to 8-4 status, his first breakout season after going 5-7. Went to a bowl game against Tennessee, blew a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter to finish at 8-5, and then have the breakout year in 2020, almost beat Ohio State, almost went to the Big Ten championship game, and lost to Ole Miss in a bowl game to finish 6-2 in the top 15 in the country. Started out 2021 17th ranked in the country. Lost Michael Penix, their quarterback, first to injury, then to transfer. And it's been all downhill from there. They got bloodied by Cincinnati a couple weeks ago by 4 touchdowns. And again, they lose to Nebraska in the fourth quarter. Tom Allen, now after having a nice run for 2 seasons at Indiana, is now 1-11 his last 12 games in the Big Ten. Tom Allen at number 7 on our list. Let's go to the ACC and another up-and-coming coach that we have all viewed as one of the bright and young stars in the coaching ranks, and that's Jeff Hafley at BC. Left Ohio State as a co-defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach, took the BC head coaching position. And one of the reasons he got the job is they stated at the news conference that Jeff Hafley comes from a winning program. He knows about winning, and we want winning culture at BC. Jeff Hafley had a decent 2020 season and 21 season. They basically went 500. They went 7-5 this past season, did not get to play in the bowl game. But this season, Boston College has been awful. And a lot of the narratives with a number of these coaches is that they had a good season a year or 2 ago, and the downward trajectory is rather recent. So it seems ridiculous to pull the trigger and have a knee-jerk reaction to 3 or 4 football games. However, we see that's what's going on. Herm Edwards went 8-5 and went to a bowl game last year. Gets fired after 3 games. With seemingly the NCAA allegations not even really factoring in. We know what happened to Paul Chryst after a great run at Wisconsin, but losing 3 out of 5 games in embarrassing fashion. So don't discount what could possibly happen here concerning Jeff Hafley. I think he's safe. That's why he's this low on the list. However, Boston College looks bad. They did finally get a win in the ACC over former and fellow hot seater Scott Satterfield at Louisville, 34-33 this past weekend. So Jeff Hafley at number 8, not developing. Phil Jurkovec, who seems to be regressing. Bad offensive line. That's been an issue with Boston College in trying to win some ball games and getting blown out by the likes of Virginia Tech and Florida State this year. And finally, at number 9, we go way off the radar to a guy that we had discussed in an earlier video this week because I was asked about it during a call-in show. Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M. Okay, first response is going to be the buyout's ridiculously. It's insane. I get it. That's a factor. Money is always a factor. Money and winning. And other things come into play if you're Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern or David Shaw at Stanford. But just about everywhere else, it's winning and money and how they're connected at some places in terms of filling the stadium. That's not an issue at Texas A&M. They've got everything they would ever want to build a football giant. However, they've got a head coach who came in and they threw the wallet at him, the Brinks truck, it all came his way. And I don't know why they renegotiated and extended his contract. He hadn't proven anything. You gave him a ton of money. You gave him a long contract. You didn't need to extend it after he had a 9-1 season in 2020. They didn't play anybody. They had 2 wins against winning teams, and that was Florida on a last-second field goal and against a 6-5 Auburn team. And they give Jimbo Fisher an extension when they didn't need to. And they would be closer to the end had they not. He's 5 years into this, going on a 6th season, correct? No, going on a 5th season. This would be his 5th full season at Texas A&M. He started in 2018. He's been 8-4. That's basically who he's been at Texas A&M. That's not good enough for the kind of money that they're paying him. And I said it before the season started. The trajectory of the program seems to be going up with these ridiculous recruiting classes. They just signed the best player in the country for 2023, David Hicks. And, of course, had the #1 rated recruiting class in the history of college football in 2022. But those guys aren't quite ready to be a huge impact. Texas A&M season's supposed to be 2023. And hopefully for Jimbo Fisher, Connor Weigman's going to be the star that they need at the quarterback position, because that's what they're missing. Playmakers on the outside, they have underdeveloped at wide receiver, and they have underdeveloped at quarterback, and now they have a workmanlike journeyman-type quarterback in Max Johnson, who's a decent player, a good player, but not a SEC championship caliber player at quarterback. So they are languishing right now. Jimbo Fisher is not calling good plays, is not running the offense, needs to get an offensive coordinator who can turn things around, update the offense, bring some ingenuity and creativity to the offense. But Jimbo Fisher, despite the ridiculous buyout of what would be roughly $85 to $90 million, Texas is deep in oil wealth. And they may say, we've had enough, we can raise that kind of money. If Paul Chryst gets paid off $16 million, renegotiated to $11, $16 million by Wisconsin, after meeting expectations for 5 or 6 years, then maybe Texas comes up with, and when I say Texas, I mean Texas A&M, the wealth in Texas comes up with $85 million, maybe negotiated down to 50 or 60 to buy out Jimbo Fisher, get him out of town, and bring in another heavy hitter. My thoughts on the hot seat situation in college football right here at the Voice of College Football. Please like the video, share the videos out on social media, and subscribe. Give me a call on our next call-in show, and we'll see you next time right here at the Voice of College Football.